Okay, so we're starting a series called 10-Minute Topics. And this is by request. Some people do not like the quick 2-minute videos. I personally like them. It's hard for me to talk for 10 minutes. But I'm going to do it for this series, and it's pretty much a recap of a bunch of videos we had done earlier. Right, so we started this at the beginning of 2019, or towards the end of 2019. We're posting a lot. And today's topic is, why is real estate investing in New York different? Now, first, we're going to talk about why it's harder, and then we're going to talk about why it's better. There are good reasons too. So I'm going to summarize why it's harder first. So the biggest issue is attorneys, right? A lot of the information you get online about real estate investing says you're going to sit with a seller, you're going to bring him a contract, get an investor-friendly title company, and you're in contract. It's just not how it works in New York. Can you make that whole attorney thing easier? Yeah, we're going to get more into it. But attorneys slow things down and make things harder. So let's summarize first. So first, it's attorneys. In general, the purchase prices are higher than most parts of the other country. Certainly in Nassau, Queens, you're talking about 5-10 times the median in the rest of the country. Property taxes are really high here compared to other parts of the country. EMDs, earnest money deposits, so the amount that you're expected to put down is much higher. In other parts of the country, you can do $20. Closing costs are ridiculously high, especially where we are in Nassau County. Single-family rentals in most parts of our area are not cash flow positive, which we'll talk about more. Local municipalities are a real pain in the ass. We'll talk about that more. Owner financing is impossible because if the guy doesn't pay, it can take you 10 years to foreclose. And in general, there's a New York attitude that people are more suspicious here than they are in other parts of the country. So let's deal with each of these more in depth. So attorneys is the biggest part of the problem here in New York. When a seller agrees to sell you something, that seller should be represented by an attorney. Now, there are people we know who will, and we will suggest an attorney sometimes, but there are people who will work with multiple attorneys that they work with and sort of not really have the seller represented. We think that's the problem, if the seller's not really represented. So we believe that they should meet with an attorney, and an attorney should really be representing their interests. And we also believe that if you don't do that, then if the seller wants to come after you and sue you, he'll have a strong case. Because standard in New York is that a seller is represented by an attorney. This costs money, this takes time. Very often the seller's attorney will kill the deal because he'll say it should not be assignable if you want to assign the contract. But it's something you got to learn to deal with, and we have excellent attorneys if you need that we can help you with that will help you through that process. So let's talk about purchase prices. Obviously, purchase prices are higher. Median prices in our area are $400,000, $500,000. Other parts of the country that you can get a mansion for that. Here you can't. Property taxes are a big problem, huge problem. We bought properties that we thought were layups, and because we didn't really realize that the property taxes on them were higher than what other properties in the area were going for, and that literally hurt us and prevented us from selling the property because the buyers couldn't qualify for a mortgage. So you got to be careful. You got to look at villages and village taxes, and you got to really pay attention to what taxes are. And as long as they're typical for the area, it shouldn't hold you back. But it's something you have to understand. It affects your holding costs. It affects the ability of your end buyer to qualify for a loan. And we had a property where the village taxes were $8,000. So I mean, that's $700 a month additional that a buyer had to qualify for, and it was a low income area. So I mean, we had several buyers who loved the property, wanted to pay us what we wanted for the property, just couldn't qualify because taxes were too high. Deposits are a big deal. EMDs, earnest money deposits, which is what you give on contract. In other parts of the country, you give $10, $50, $100. Here, standard sales attorney is going to tell you to put 10% down. You're buying a property for $300,000. They don't want you to put $30,000 down. Now, you can negotiate that, and there are things we can help you say that will get you to get the seller to tell his attorney, take a smaller amount. But you're not getting away with $50 or $100. It's never going to happen. Best case will be like $5,000, $10,000. So you have to understand that it's a big part of how we do business here. Closing costs in general stink. Recording fees in Nassau County are thousands of dollars. Your attorney's going to charge you at least $2,000, $1,500, $2,000. Most of the time over $2,000. That's more than the closing costs in the Carolinas. You pay for the whole transaction. So I mean, we figure usually about $10,000 in costs because you're going to have to pay taxes that are due. You're going to have to pay a legal fee. You're going to have to pay title charges. It's usually $10,000 to buy a property. Rentals are not an option. So in other parts of the country, if you can't find a seller, you'll rent it out and you'll be cash flow positive because your taxes are low, and rental versus the purchase price makes sense. Here, it almost never makes sense on a single unit property for it to cash flow positive, because after you have your interest costs and your property taxes, you're usually underwater. Local municipalities are something that are complicated here. There's every single in Nassau County, there's 3 towns, there's like 12 villages and 2 cities, and you have to know each one and the differences between them, what you can do. Just for an example, in the village of Malvern, you're not allowed to put a for sale sign. In the village of Rockville Center, your for sale sign can only say certain verbiage and has to be a certain size. In the village of Floral Park, it also has to be a certain size, and they'll fine you if you. There's all kinds of crazy rules besides the building departments that are also complicated. You have to be aware of all these municipalities. They do not make it easy for you. They're all trying to get money from you. Owner financing is impossible here because in a place like Texas, if you become the bank and lend the money to someone, they don't pay in 60 days, you can probably get them out. Here, it could take you 10 years. So you can't be a bank if it's going to take you 10 years to get somebody out. That's how long foreclosures can take in New York. And in general, this New York attitude means that people are more suspicious of you, and you need to put them at ease and explain to them why you are trying to help them solve a problem. Those are the reasons why it is harder in New York to do real estate investing. Now we're going to talk about why it's better. You'll notice there's fewer reasons on this. In general, profits are much higher than in other areas. Like a place like Phoenix, a lot of wholesalers are happy with $8,000. The average spread we have is around $30,000, and that's both on wholesale and hotel. On rehabs, our spreads were higher, and it's not uncommon to make $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 on a rehab if you do it right and you do it quick. But those are big numbers for people in other markets. They're not going to get that money. It's certainly not on wholesaling spreads. We live in an area that's really the center of the world, right? I believe New York City is the capital of the world, and there's an insatiable demand for purchases and certainly for rentals now in our area. So, there are rural parts of certain parts of the country where you may not find someone to buy the property so quickly. Here, if you're priced right, it'll go immediately. That's just the fact. People want to live around New York, even deep into Long Island, but anywhere around New York City, you're not going to have trouble selling something if it's priced right. There's plenty of job sources. We were looking at something in a city once where I think something like 60% of the city was employed by one factory. If that factory closes down, what do you think is going to happen to all the people paying you rent and your demand for housing? You're up the creek. That's just never going to happen in New York. There's just so many people, so many jobs, so much demand. It's a big blessing that we don't even appreciate living here. But things move, and if things are priced right today, with technology where everyone has access to see what's out there, you're going to sell things super quick if it's priced right. As I said, assignment fees are higher, so profits are higher, and really this is an inverse, and I didn't really understand this for a while. But because it's so hard to get into contract with attorneys and all the contract process, no one's stealing your contract. So in other parts of the country where you give the guy a $100 deposit at his kitchen table and say you're in contract, if that guy calls you up 2 weeks later and says somebody else gave me more money, sorry, screw off. There are ways to protect yourself with filing something, an assignment, a memorandum, and those things. But if you didn't do that, you're out of luck. But in New York, if you're in contract, nobody's getting out of contract. You can sue them for specific performance for the whole purchase price, and it just is never going to happen. If you're in contract, you control that property, and the strength of that control in New York, because it's so hard to get into contract, gives you advantages. And we've tried to use that to our advantage in several situations, and maybe we'll talk about that later. But if you're in New York, and I know a lot of people watching this are in New York, around the New York City area, so anywhere in the suburbs or the 5 boroughs, our area is Long Island, the Nassau, and Suffolk. There's a lot of pros and a lot of cons to doing it. Most of the information you're going to see on the internet is not going to have any bearing on what you do. I mean, I get calls from people all the time saying, do you have an investor-friendly title company? To me, I know that's someone who saw something about real estate investing online, and that's what they were told to do. The title company here doesn't do anything. They don't disperse the funds. They don't control the closing. The attorney does that. Do you need a title company who knows what they're doing? Of course. But you don't need an investor-friendly title company. You need an investor-friendly attorney, because the attorney really runs the transaction, just like title companies do it in most states. So that is my 10 minutes on why New York is different. Again, a lot more reasons why it's worse than why it's better. We love it here, despite all the problems. Sometimes I wish we didn't have those problems, but this is the reality that we've been doing. We've been doing this full-time since 2013, and I hope that this 10-minute topic was helpful in summarizing really there's my 10 minutes, summarizing really a whole series of videos that we did earlier. I may have missed some details, but this is our first 10-minute topic.